verse 3. The question I want us to think about this morning is this. Why is the world a mess? What's the problem with the world? That is one of the most important questions that we can ask, and everybody asks it at some point or other, whether it's a philosopher in a university, whether it's somebody having their haircut in a hairdresser's. We all ask that question, and there are lots of answers that are given to it. What's the problem with the world? Well, what are the answers that are given to that? Well, there is climate change. The problem is war. The problem is inequality. The problem is poverty. The problem is religious conflicts and fighting. The problem is corruption of governments and people in authority. The problem is lack of resources, or lack of education, or lack of safety, or lack of employment. There are lots of answers given to why the world's a mess, and lots of people propose solutions. Well, what we need is better education. What we need is more advanced scientific discoveries. What we need is to look after the environment better. What we need is better social welfare. But the problem is those things haven't dealt with the problems of the world. They haven't sorted things out. See, all those things I've mentioned are problems in the world, but the reason we've not come up with a solution to those things is because there's a problem underneath those problems. There's something underneath it all. The Bible's answer to the problems of the world is this: sin. This passage that we're looking at this morning is about the fall of the human race, the fall of Adam and Eve. It's not a myth. This is history. This is what actually happened. And it explains why the world is in a mess. There was a film that came out, was it last year or the year before, involving Winston Churchill, called The Darkest Hour. And Winston Churchill said that 1940 was the UK's darkest hour. This passage is the world's darkest hour. Because in this passage we're told how sin came into the world, what resulted from that, and we also discover how it can be sorted out. So 3 things about sin that I want us to see. I want us to see the lie, I want us to look at the fruit, and I want us to look at the fig leaves. The lie, the fruit, and the fig leaves. First of all, the lie. How did sin come into the world? It came into the world through a lie. Verse 1, we're told we're introduced to the serpent. Now the serpent was more crafty than any other beast of the field that the Lord God had made. Satan came into the world in the form of a serpent. This wasn't just a snake, there was an evil power behind the snake. Now the passage doesn't tell us where Satan came from, although elsewhere in the Bible we're told that he was an angel in heaven who became proud and fell from heaven and from the presence of God. He wanted to be God instead of God. But we are told that he's not equal with God. He came into the garden. He's a creature who has rebelled against his creator. But the big issue in this passage is not the fact that Satan came into the garden, but what Satan brought with him. Satan brought the lie. And there's 2 parts to the lie. First of all, there's the sneer. The serpent said to the woman, verse 2, did God, or the end of verse 1, did God actually say, you shall not eat of any tree in the garden? What's Satan doing there? Well, he's not arguing with the woman about the existence of God. He's mocking God. He doesn't argue with the woman. He tries to unsettle her heart. And he does so with a sneer. Did God really say that? Is that really what God is like? You know, often arguments against the Christian faith begin with a sneer. Really? You're really a Christian? Do you really go to church? It happens when you're at school, if you're a Christian and you're at school. People say, really? You really believe in Jesus? You really believe that Jesus died and he rose again? And that can catch you off guard. And it caught this woman off guard. And she's drawn into an argument with the serpent. She says to the serpent in verse 2, we may eat of the fruit of the trees in the garden, but God said, you shall not eat of the fruit of the tree that's in the midst of the garden. Neither shall you touch it, lest you die. You see, this sneer of Satan catches her off guard, and instead of answering the serpent rightly, she goes beyond what God had said. Don't eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. But she says, don't even touch it. The sneer has begun to draw her heart away from God. See, that's what sneers can do. Sneers are not arguments against the Christian faith, but they can intimidate you. They can make you begin to question and doubt what God has said. It can begin to make you think, should I really be a Christian? Not because someone's given a really good argument to you, but are you really a Christian? Do you really go to church? Do you really believe in Jesus? What should you say when someone says that to you? What should Eve have said to the serpent? She should have said, do you know what you're doing? That's a sneer. That's not an argument. Can you explain why what I believe is wrong? But there's a second part to the lie, and that's the lie itself. And there's two parts to this lie. These are the two parts behind every sin. The first is this: it will do you no harm. That's what the serpent says in verse 4. The serpent said to the woman, you will not surely die. God said to Adam and Eve, I want you to enjoy this garden that I've made. Look at all the trees in the garden, look at all the fruits, look at the rivers, look at the gold and the jewels. What a wonderful paradise I've made for you. But just don't eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. See, God's a generous God, He's a kind God. He's like the parent who says, play in the garden. Play with all the toys in the garden. But just don't play on the main road, or you're going to die. And what does Satan do? He picks up on this command and he twists it. He says, you won't die. He's challenging God's authority. God says, you eat from that tree, you're going to die. Satan says, you eat from that tree, you're not going to die. And that's the first part of every lie. The first part of every sin. The first part of every sin is, it will do you no harm. Looking at that website, it will do you no harm. Having that drink, it will do you no harm. But there's a second part to the lie. And the second part is this: if you don't do it, you're robbing yourself of happiness. If you don't do it, you're robbing yourself of happiness. That's what Satan says. He says in verse 5, God knows when you eat of it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil. See what Satan's doing here? He's questioning God's goodness. He's saying, look, God doesn't want you to be happy in your life. If He wanted you to be happy, He would let you eat from that tree because He would make you like Him. God doesn't want you to be happy. God wants you to be miserable. God doesn't want you to flourish in life. He wants to hold you back and hold you down. If you want to be free, you've got to break free from God. You've got to take that fruit. You've got to eat that fruit. No rules for me. I'm free. See, Satan here, he doesn't question God's existence, he questions God's goodness. He's saying you can't trust God to make you happy. If you want to be happy in your life, you've got to take your life into your own hands. You can't give your life into the hands of God, because if you give your life into the hands of God, then He's going to clip your wings, He's going to make you miserable. If you do what God says, your life will be awful. See, this is a massive lie. This is the lie behind every lie. This is the lie behind every sin. This is a lie that is so big that it reorientates your mind. It reorientates your view of the world. You know, ask yourself this. Why are you tempted to sin? Why are you tempted to do something which you know you shouldn't do? You know, we've all done that, haven't we? Well, you've done that. You know there's something that you shouldn't do, and you've gone and done it anyway. Why? Why did you do it? It's because of a lie. It's because in the moment you don't believe that God is good. In the moment you don't believe that God loves you. In the moment you don't trust God to make you happy. You think, if I don't do this, I'm going to miss out on happiness. If I don't do this, my life's going to be worse. You know, that's why we tell lies at work. I mean, why do you tell lies at work? Because if you tell the truth, work's not going to go well. Why do you sleep with someone that you're not married to? Because it'll make me happy if I do. Why do you seek revenge and want to get your own back on somebody who's wronged you? Because you don't trust God to do a good job when it comes to judgment. Why aren't you generous with the stuff that you've got? Because you don't think God will provide for all your needs. See, it's the lie. The lie, and it permeates everything in the world. The lie that God doesn't love you, that God isn't good. It destroys our relationship with God because we can't trust Him. How can we trust someone who doesn't love us and isn't good? Especially when He's all powerful. But that lie also permeates our human relationships, because if you don't trust God, you don't end up trusting other people. And so you end up with misery and sadness everywhere. See, Satan here is saying, if you want to be happy, you should reject what God says. He says, if you want to do what God says, if you want to live a holy life, you will be sad and miserable, and yet actually see the way around. Sin begins with a lie. It begins in the mind, it begins in the heart. But then we see what the lie leads to. And it leads to the fruit. Look at verse 6. These are awful words. Probably the worst words in the Bible. When the woman saw that the tree was good for food, that it was a delight to the eyes, and that the tree was to be desired to make one wise, she took of its fruit and ate. And she also gave some to her husband who was with her, and he ate. You know, in this first sin, we see a pattern for every sin. And it happens so quickly, it's told so briefly. She saw, she took, she ate, she gave. And then those two words which I think are the worst in the world. He ate. So simple an act, so hard to undo. Now you ask, what was so bad about this? What's so bad about eating fruit from a tree? You You know, there was an Appetizer advert a few years ago which showed Adam and Eve picking an apple from the tree and how delicious it was. And what's so bad about eating fruit from the tree? Well, eating the fruit from the tree wasn't the big deal. The big deal was disobeying God. God had said, don't do it, they didn't. You see, what happened was that Eve and Adam listened to the creature instead of the Creator. They acted on their impressions instead of their instructions. They made their own self-fulfillment their goal instead of God their goal. They took their happiness into their own hands rather than saying, I'm going to trust God to make me happy. And that's rebellion. That's disobedience. That's treachery. That's disloyalty. And that's at the heart of every sin. You see, in every sin, a choice has been made. And the choice that's been made is a decision and a choice to disobey God. You see, God has made us. God knows what's best for our lives. God wants us to live in relationship with Him. And the only way that as creatures we can live in relationship with our Creator, a perfect and a good and a healthy and a loving relationship, is if we obey our Creator. As soon as we rebel, we break that relationship and we take our life into our own hands. That's at the root of this first sin, and it's at the root of every sin, and that's all. One of our children at home is a great procrastinator, and he loves to delay bedtime, and he thinks of every reason under the sun to delay bedtime. I'm going to tidy up my bedroom. I'm going to wash the pots. I'm going to get my bike ready for school. I'm going to do my homework, even though I need to have it in 2 weeks' time. And he thinks of every single excuse. And we say to him, that's great, we really want you to do all those things. But at this moment in time, we just want you to go to bed. And we want you to go to bed because we've asked you to go to bed. We'd love you to do all those things at a later time, but sometimes when we ask him to do those things, he doesn't do them anyway. But the key thing is obedience. In the moment, we want you to obey. That's what every parent wants. God's the ultimate parent. He's the most loving parent. Us parents, human parents, get things wrong. We tell our children to do things and we're like, oh no, I shouldn't have asked you to do that. God doesn't do that. His commands are always good and always healthy. You see, God knows what's best for our lives. And what's best for our lives is to obey Him. You see, we have a choice to make. We can either have God as our boss, or you can have yourself as your boss. Either God calls the shots, or you call the shots. Either the Creator of the heavens and the earth, your Creator calls the shots, or you, who didn't make everything, call the shots in your life. Now, the reason we should obey God is because He's God. There are other reasons we should obey God, like the fact that God said to Adam and Eve, you'll die if you eat from that tree. I do sometimes wonder, if God had laid out exactly what the consequences of eating from the tree would be, whether Adam would have said, okay, I'm not going to go there. Misery and destruction to the human race forever. Billions and billions and billions of people dying physically. The separation from God, and of course, destruction in hell. Maybe if Adam had known all those things, he might have thought twice. But God didn't tell him all those things, because what God wanted him to obey simply because God said it. God asked you to do things in your life, and you don't know all the reasons why you should do it. But you should do it because God says so. I asked my 2-year-old to do things. She doesn't understand all the reasons why I ask her to do something, but she should just obey because she should trust me. You see, every sin, in every sin, we put ourselves in the place of God. And the problem is we're not God, and that's why things go wrong. Now, take the Ten Commandments, for instance. Why should you keep the Ten Commandments? And we read them earlier in the service, and Tom went through 2 of them. Why should you keep the Ten Commandments? Because God says so. Why do you break the Ten Commandments? Because you don't think that keeping them will make your life happy. You don't believe that God is good and God is loving and He knows what's best for you. Now, take the Ten Commandments. You may not have murdered anybody, but why do you get bitter and angry with people? Because you don't think that God will judge. You don't think that He will judge in a good and a loving way. You may not think that you're covered, but why do you get jealous of what other people have got? Because you think you deserve better. Why do you worry and get anxious in your life? Because you know how your life should go. And you don't think that God knows how your life should go. And you don't think He's going to guide your life in the best way for you. And so you get anxious and you get worried. See, the lies come in. God is not good. God doesn't love you. And that leads us to disobeying Him, distrusting Him. It brings sadness, it brings misery, and it brings blame as well. We end up blaming God for our own sin. It's your fault, God. Or we blame our circumstances. It's the circumstances you've brought into my life, God. Or you blame other people. But actually, it's my fault. It's your fault. Because we have put ourselves in the place of God. So how can it be undone? How can the problems of life be sorted out? The mess that's in the world, how can it be solved? Well, we see the answer in the big leaves. In verse 7, we're told this: the eyes of both were opened. They knew that they were naked, and they sewed fig leaves together and made themselves loincloths. Now, this was an eye-opening experience, but for all the wrong reasons. You see, earlier we were told that they were naked and had no shame. They were open, they were vulnerable. Anyone could see what they were like, and they were without any shame. And now they're naked, and they're ashamed of themselves. They're ashamed of what people can see. And so what do? They made some loincloths of fig leaves. It's not much of a covering, but they've got the right idea. You see, they realise that because they're naked and ashamed, they need to cover up. They need something to cover their nakedness, something to cover their shame. Something to help them hide. Our 2-year-old, whenever she does something wrong, she runs and she hides. Yesterday she was drawing on the table in our sitting room, and I came in and she knew immediately that she'd done wrong, so she went and she hid behind her doll's house. Now, we're adults, we don't hide behind dolls' houses. But we hide behind our image. We hide behind our possessions. We hide behind our work, and we work too hard. We hide behind being religious. Come to church. We think we're a good person. We hide behind our goodness. But those things are all fig leaves, trying to cover up our sense of shame. And the problem with fig leaves is the wind always blows them apart. They can never cover you up. No amount of trying to cover up, no amount of trying to hide will undo the eating of the tree. And so how can it be undone? How can you find a covering? Well, what we need is another Adam. And we need another garden. And that second Adam is Jesus Christ. The night before he went to the cross, Jesus went into another garden, the Garden of Gethsemane. And in the garden, God asked him, will you obey me and go to the cross? And Jesus, in agony, said to his Father, not my will, but your will be done. He obeyed his Father. You see, God said to Adam in the Garden of Eden, obey me about the tree and you'll live. And Adam disobeyed. In the Garden of Gethsemane, God said to Jesus, obey me about the tree and you'll die. And Jesus obeyed him about the tree. And when he went to the cross, when Jesus Christ died on the cross, obeying God, what did he do? He broke Adam's disobedience through his obedience. When Jesus Christ went to the cross, he broke the power of sin and brought life to human beings. So that there's a way now for us to be forgiven for Adam's sin, for our sin. And it comes through the tree of life, through the cross of Jesus Christ. The cross of Jesus Christ deals with your sin, but it also deals with this lie that permeates through the world. This lie that God doesn't love you. Because if you look to the cross of Jesus Christ, you can see once and for all that God does love you. That God is a good God. Because God loved you so much that he sent his Son to die on the cross for you, so that you can never doubt his love again. You see, whenever you are questioned about his love, or whenever you question yourself about his love, you can look to the cross and say, I know that God loves me. Because he wouldn't withhold his only Son from me. And if God loves me like that, he's going to do good in my life, even if I don't know how he's going to work it out. You see, if you look to the cross of Jesus Christ, you can see your sins forgiven. You can see God's love and God's goodness for you. And you can experience that this morning. You see, that's what God calls you to do this morning. He calls you to trust and obey. Just like he asked Adam and Eve in the garden to trust him, he asks you to trust him. Adam and Eve didn't. And in two fateful words, misery came into the world. They took and they ate. But in God's kindness, in God's grace, he has transformed those two words. If you want to know God's love this morning in your life, if you want to know your sins forgiven, that's what you need to do. You need to take and eat. And what you need to take and eat is Jesus Christ himself. Jesus is the bread of life. You feed on him by faith, and you will live. You trust in what he has done for you, and you will know yourself completely forgiven. You will know yourself completely loved. And you don't need to doubt those things ever again. We're coming to the Lord's table this morning. A reminder of that last supper, where Jesus held up the bread and said, this is my body broken for you. This is my blood poured out for you. Take and eat in remembrance that I have died for you. And feed on me in your hearts by faithful thanksgiving. When you pray. Lord, we doubt your love so often. We don't think that you are a good and a loving and a gracious God. Often we picture you as an ogre. And because of that, we disobey you. We put ourselves on the seat of authority, the throne of our lives. And the result is misery. The result is brokenness. And the result is death. And Lord, we thank you for your love. You're never stopping, never giving your love. Your love which sent Jesus to the cross. Help us to look to that cross, to see our sins forgiven, to see your love, abounding love for us. And And may we know, as we trust him, as we take him, as we eat, that our sins are forgiven, and that we are with him. We pray this in Jesus' name.